Hey guys, welcome back to Bacon's Bass Place. I'm Aaron Bacon, and today we're finally going to be going through all of our phases of slap bass, and we're going to be talking about what strokes go in which phase. We're going to talk about what order to put the phases in. We're going to talk about why it's important to know this stuff. So stick around, guys. Before we get started, if it's your first time to my channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button because we're putting out new awesome bass related videos every Friday. So make sure you come back and you see those, okay? So what is a phase of slap bass, okay? I like to think of this sort of as a time frame in which your hand is moving in a certain direction, okay? So I call them the down phase, I call them the up phase, I also have a setup phase or a hidden secret phase, I like to call that one. And there's also a follow through. And we're just gonna start right away. We're going to go into the down phase, okay guys? Because that's kind of the first most common one that we do. It's your first thing that you learn is your slap stroke. And that's really the only stroke that occurs on the down phase, okay guys? So this is pretty much the entirety of the down phase is just your down stroke, all right? And I've done tons of videos about how to strike the string effectively with your thumb. Last week's video is called The Perfect Pop and 9 tips to get you moving towards having a perfect slapping thumb technique. And a couple weeks before that I did the perfect pop. So if you really want to dive deep on the slap technique, go check out that video. Also check out the other video combining strokes, because that one I talk about everything as well. So that's pretty much the whole entirety of the down stroke, okay? So when your hand is moving down, it's really only got one stroke, and it's the down, all right? The next most important one that we're going to look at is called the up phase, okay? Now this one has all of the juiciness, and this only really happens during double thumping, okay? Your up phase. I mean, technically you have one stroke on the up phase in normal slap bass playing, and you have 3 on the upstroke of double thumping, okay? So we're going to start with just the slap because we're simple, okay? Up phase is the pop, okay? Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Again, if you want to learn how to do a pop properly, go watch my video on the perfect pop. I will put it in the description below. But you want to keep a motion going that's basically the same concept as alternate picking with a pick. If you guys play with a pick at all, if you're guitar players, if you've ever done anything, you know that you want to keep going with alternate picking all the time, right? Very consistently down and up. I'm not using a pick, but that's what you want to do, okay? So it's the same thing with slap bass. You want to keep your alternating going. Down, up, 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 down, up. Okay? So we have our down phase and our up phase. That's when we're just playing slap bass, okay? When we start double thumping, we get a few more tricks on the up that we can do, and that kind of is really where most of the double thumping actually comes in, all right? So let's look more at the up phase, okay? We go down with our thumb, and we go up, we can pop. We go up, another thing we can do is the double pop. I kind of consider those two different things, one pop and one double pop, right? Because to do 2 pops separately needs 2 setups, right? But to do a double pop needs 1 setup, and it's 1 pulling motion. The double pop feels like 1 motion, and it happens in 1 upstroke, okay? It's not 2 separate upstrokes that require another setup. In between them, they both happen on 1, okay? So that's why I count it as a different stroke than the single pop and a double pop, all right? So single pop, double pop. All right? The other one that is the gold, is the money maker on double thumping, is the up thumb, okay? I've also done a whole video on how to make sure that you're getting the up thumb properly, so make sure you guys go check that out. Whew! So, going with the up thumb, what you want to do is do your down phase slap, and then make sure that you follow through with that. We're going to talk more about the follow through later, but you don't want to hit that and mute it right away. You want to hit that down phase and let it ring out so that you can do an up. Because an up thumb happens on the same note. You can't. It's pretty hard to like do an up, do a down slap here, and then do an up thumb on another one, another string. You know, when you're doing a down and an up, it's kind of on the same string usually. So the up phase is how you can get into all kinds of cool stuff, and it really smoothly flows into a pop, okay? So you can get two up phases, you can get two strokes in your up phase. You're not doing two up phases, but you're doing two strokes on your up phase, right? So if you go down phase has just your slap, up phase has your thumb and a pop, right? So two strokes on the up phase. Alright, so going down and then up thumb and pop really flows very nicely. To the point where it almost gets tricky to not do an up thumb after a while. To go like that's a lot harder for me without the up thumb because it just doesn't flow as well. Because I have to actually do a slap and then get my thumb out of there before I can do the other thing. If I do the slap and then I just right away go into my up thumb, that just pulls my other fingers right through very ergonomically. Right? But when I just go slap, pop, pop, I have to make sure that my other thumb is getting out of my other thumb. I only have one thumb, guys. Sorry, I'm just like you. To make sure that my actual thumb gets out of the way of that when I'm doing two pops without an up thumb, okay? So, that's the down phase, we have just slap. Up phase, we have a pop, and we have up thumb, and we have a double pop, okay? Now, the thing that I think is very important, if you've been following my channel for a while, this is the phase that I think a lot of people can use to make more economic, make more ergonomic, and make it more fluid in their playing, right? And it's the what I call the setup phase. You hear me talking about setups all the time, and this is all happening in the setup phase. I also like to call it the hidden phase because I like to make it not necessarily its own phase, right? I don't want to have to slap, and then any move now after a downstroke that requires a setup, I have to set it up, right? So that's basically everything on the upstroke, on the up phase, a pop, a double pop, and an up thumb. They all require to be set up first. So what I do is combine that with my downstroke. I combine the setup phase with the down phase. That's why I kind of call it the hidden phase when you do this. Is because you don't want to have three motions, okay? You don't want to go slap down phase and then setup phase. I have to bring my finger all the way down here to put it under the string, and then I can pop my up phase. That's three motions, right? That's 1, 2, 3. I don't want to have to do three motions. I want to do two motions, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to hide that setup in the down phase, okay? So when I do my down thumb, I want to land with my index finger ready to pop. I don't want to have to land my thumb, then move my finger into position, okay? I want to land with my thumb, with my popping finger in position. So I can just do this. Okay? You can only do that with the setup. Like, you can't get that kind of alternating if you're not hiding your setup in your down phase, okay? If you're not doing it at the same time, what you have to do is land your up phase has to be ready to go when you land your down stroke, okay? It happens naturally with the up thumb, okay? Because it's not a separate finger. You can't land your thumb and then put your thumb there to set it up. You land your thumb and it's already ready to go. Up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, 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 right? It's not down, set up, down, set up, down, set up, up. Like it would be if you don't hide it, right? Down, set up, down, set up, down, set up, down, set up, up. Or you can just go down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. That's what you really should be doing, okay, guys? Now again, pretty much everything on the up phase is what you're going to be doing the setup, okay? So the setup phase is your up thumb, your pop, and your double pop, okay? Now there's a bit of a special stroke in slurs, okay? almost all the, I use 4 slurs mainly. I do hammer-ons, pull-offs, slides, and then that's really it, but I also include the hammer-on out of nowhere. Just kind of like tapping, but you know, we don't actually tap with this hand. We kind of just do that, and then do like a freaky technique over here. Right? So that's done with hammer-ons out of nowhere. And that's the only type of slur that doesn't require a setup, okay? You can just do it whenever. Okay, those first 2 notes are both hammer-ons out of nowhere. All of the other ones require a setup, as in it requires... I'm just calling it a setup to be expedient here, but it's really just 2 notes, you know? It's like to hit a hammer-on, you have to hit a note first, and then do a hammer-on. To do a pull-off, you have to hit a note first, and then do the pull-off. To do a slide, you go from one note to another note, you know? So it's not really a setup phase, you could call it, but I like to think about it like that because you still have to do something before you can do it, okay? So again, the hammer-on out of nowhere is the only one that doesn't happen with. Now the last thing I'm going to talk about is what I call the follow-through, all right? And now this is the most subtle, this is the most least talked about one, and this is the one that makes it sound good, sort of, you know? One thing that I kind of relate this to when I was like 14, I was on a competitive rifle shooting team, and I never understood how important the follow-through was, because we would be laying on the ground in prone position, and you'd have your air rifle, and you'd shoot it, and they'd say, like, you have to stay there for like a whole breath or 2 after you pull the trigger, so that, because if you move the barrel slightly, it's gonna mess with your thing, so you just, with your aim, so you just make sure that you don't move it by staying there a couple extra seconds, right? I never understood this because, like, I can hear the bullet hit the paper and they're still like, don't move yet, you know, just to condition you for this. And it really did make a difference when it clicked for me, and I started doing it and realized that, like, my shots were a lot more secure. They were a lot more guaranteed to be within my average, you could say, instead of like having these crazy bad outliers everywhere, bringing my average down, you know? So the follow-through is very important for that reason, to not mess with the shot after you do it, right? And that's kind of the same mentality that I have with these slap-based strokes, right? The follow-through is basically you have to clear out the string. You have to move your hand away from the string. You can't mute it, right? Which is hard if you're in between phases, if you're in between strokes. If you're doing this, how do you do the down thumb and get it ready to do an up thumb without that up thumb just immediately like muting it, and you stop there like this? That's kind of a lack of a follow through, you know? What the follow through for the down stroke of the slap bass is and I've talked about this in tons of other videos too, if you go check those out. When you slap, I'm making sure that my thumb is away from that string that's ringing, okay? I'm just making sure that I'm pushing against the string below it, or at least rested on it, landing on that one, so that I have room for this D note to ring before I go up and do it again. And then that also helps me to not mute it in the beginning of my up thumb, right? Like when you're using a pick, you don't want to put the pick on the string and then stroke it, because it'll mute it, right? Kind of like even just normal finger style bass strokes, you know, you kind of don't want to like put your finger on it between each string, because it's gonna, between each note, because it's going to stop it, right? You don't want that. You want constant notes with no space in between them. The way that you do that is by striking the string without resting your finger on the string first, okay? So that's what you want to make sure you're doing with your up phase notes after you do it down. You have to follow through properly, and that will ensure that you're not muting it when you go to do your up thumb, okay? Or your pops. My follow through on the pops is kind of more like making sure you don't overdo it, alright? I'm not putting so much twisting. Again, you can watch my video about pops to see the motion that I do, but I'm not like reefing on it with my hand either, and arm. Like there is some that's coming from my shoulder and my arm just to get a little bit of extra strength in the motion, but Again, the actual tone and like dexterity and control I kind of get from like squeezing my finger. Gives me a bit more control over when I want it to do it, and the tone and the velocity and everything. So if I follow through like too much, it's just doesn't work very well, you know? So my follow through for that is kind of just making sure that I give it enough room, again, but not that I'm like way over here, because that's kind of hard to get back into the right place, you know? Right? You don't want to like do that. All right, so quick recap of the phases. We have our down phase, which includes our slap. We have our up phase, which includes our pops, our up thumbs and our double pops and our slurs. And we have a follow through, which you just want to do with everything. We also have the vital one, which is called the setup phase, which happens most of the time between the down phase and the up phase, okay? So that means that the order that these phases typically come in is a little different sometimes, but you want to keep alternating, right? So try and keep them in this order. It's down, setup, up, follow through, right? So down phase, setup phase, up phase, follow through. Again, you want to combine the setup phase and the down phase, okay? Why do we put it in this order? Because that's kind of naturally occurring. Again, we want to keep this alternating motion going. So if you do this kind of thing, like, it's all right, but it kind of like breaks the rhythm, you know? All of this is just normal alternating. Right? All of that is just hammer-ons and like left hand stuff that's adding all of the subdivisions. But this hand is basically just... See how all that's happening without my hands stopping this, okay? That's why these phases come in this order, because it's naturally occurring, and it's just going to help you to make everything flow much more smoothly. So why is it important to understand these phases of slap bass, okay? Well, first thing is it's important to have a conceptual understanding for me. You want to actually be able to articulate what you're doing, okay? You don't want to just randomly do stuff that you're just throwing your hand at your strings and you don't really know what's happening, okay? You want to have a good understanding of what strokes fit next to each other and why and where, and considering these phases will really help you to identify a lot of those options, because you know that the down phase comes before the setup phase comes before the up phase. You know which strokes follow in those, so you know that you can go down, up, right? Down, pop, down, up, thumb, down, pop. Sometimes you can even put two up phases in a row, right? We talked about that with the up thumb and then the pop. So knowing this in your mind is good, because then it takes the guesswork out of trying to learn this stuff. You know, you can just do it without having to try and figure it out. You already know it, okay? So the other thing is that it's really going to help you organize your strokes into a groove, into a flow, okay? It's really going to help you know which ones come in which order and like why you're going to want to do it that way. It's, again, like we just mentioned, it's important to understand, but this is also going to help you just easily make a groove, you know? You just go down, up. Just try and keep your hand doing this. And don't stop your hand from doing this motion. And then just start changing up your other hand, your left hand on the fret. Okay, once you get that alternating, really going to be awesome to just click these grooves into place for you guys. You're going to hear something, you'll be like, that's a slap bass rhythm. That's going to be you right away. One thing that's going to be really awesome and useful for you guys is this is going to help you stop stumbling over the rhythmic frame lock of slap bass, what I call the rhythmic frame lock, which is like, especially when you're doing overhand slap bass and when you're not doing any double thumping, your limitations are quite prominent, you know? It really restricts certain things that you want to do, you know? And sometimes you'll be in a groove. And then all of a sudden you'll be like, stumble, stutter, mess up. And that's, well, I mean, there's a number of issues going on there, but one thing that's really going to help that is understanding these phases, and that's really going to help you to stop doing that stumbling and stuttering, because you're going to understand the flow of strokes better. You're going to understand your subdivisions better. You're going to understand which ones fit next to each other better, and that's just going to give you so many more options for what you're going to do, so that you just run into less of these areas where you get stuck and stumble over a rhythm. This is really going to help you open up your vocabulary, guys. That's such a useful way to do that, to expand and try and get different shapes, different patterns and rhythms and all this kind of stuff, is to actually study, and learn new things. Like, if you're not familiar with these phases of slap bass, you learn them and then you go into it, and you're going to have totally new tricks. So this really gives, understanding these phases is really going to open up your vocabulary. It's going to really help you to understand what works and what doesn't work, which strokes go next to each other. Okay, I know I'm starting to sound like a broken record for why you guys want to do this, but it's really important to understand for me. So one last pro tip, I've already said this, I'm going to remind you guys, but you can get a lot more efficiency by combining your strokes, right? And there's only really one area where you can do this, and you combine your setup phase with your down phase, okay? So you want to reduce it from 3 motions to 2 by combining the setup with your down, okay? So when you do your down, you want to land, set up. You don't want to have to do 3 motions with a whole nother setup phase, okay? So you combine that setup with your down to reduce from 3 to 2 motions, all right? All right, guys, thanks for watching. I'm Aaron Bacon. This has been Bacon's Bass Place. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, like and share, and hit that notification bell, because we're going to be hitting out new videos every Friday. We're doing bass-related videos. They're not always going to be bass lessons, but we're going to have bass lessons, of course. We're going to have gig vlogs. We're going to have gear modification videos. We got pedal videos. My podcast is going to be coming back at some point. So, every Friday we're doing new stuff. And while we're in the summer, I'm going to try and put out more than just every Friday, but at least every Friday. So make sure you guys are coming back for that. Make sure you check out Dizzy Mystics. That's my psychedelic, hard, heavy prog rock band. We're on Bandcamp, so make sure you download Wanderlost. That's our new EP. If you're in Winnipeg, come see us play. If you're in Alberta, you can come check us out there on tour in August. And if you want to get private bass lessons with me one-on-one, go to the About section of my channel and you'll find my email address. Send me an email and we can link up online. If you're in Winnipeg, we can do it there, but we'll make it happen either way for you. So, thanks for watching, guys, again. Come back next week and we'll see you later.